I would now like to welcome someone who needs no introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Shri Devdutt Pattanaik. He is an author of fame and writes on mythology, which he defines as cultural truths revealed through stories, symbols, and rituals. He lectures on the relevance of both Indian and Western myths in modern life. Welcome, sir. His topic for today is Mythology versus Mythological Fiction.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Is it audible? Thanks. So my name is Devdutt Pattanaik. I'm sorry, I was hearing everyone speak in Bengali. I can't speak Bengali. I'm raised in Bombay and I speak more Marathi than Odia, which my parents are very upset about. So, but I'll speak in English and I'll try to explain today. I'll talk about mythology. So, for the last 25 years, I've been working on mythology, and it's a subject that really excites me. So I'll begin by explaining what mythology means. So in India, when we use the word mythology, we think of Ramayana, Mahabharata, and most people don't realize that mythology is a subject that is found in every part of the world. So let's begin by defining what mythology is. And to understand mythology, we have to understand two words, fact and fiction. Fact is everybody's truth. And it always begins with doubt. So Shanka is very important. And then there is measurement and evidence. So Praman becomes important. So that's the world of facts. When I say there is something which is a fact, I have to keep in mind that it has to be doubted. If there is no doubt, then it is not a fact. So in science, we use the word fact because everything that you present in science is challenged, is doubted, and can be falsified. On the other side is fiction. Fiction is nobody's truth. So fact is everybody's truth and fiction is nobody's truth. Which brings us to the word myth. Myth is somebody's truth. Kuch logon ka sach. And that is the best definition and the simplest definition I can give to people. I have a truth, you have a truth, he has a truth, she has a truth. All of us have a truth. So when I come to talk to people, I have two choices. When I meet you, I say that you have a truth and I want to know your truth. And I have a truth that I would like you to figure out, and we will have a samvad, a conversation. But what happens nowadays is that when we enter the room, we say, my truth is the truth. Your truth is false. And then instead of samvad, we have vivad, or what is popularly known as the Arnab show. Because the moment you say, my truth is the truth, the moment you say, my truth is the truth, you will not have a conversation. You will only have a debate. But to have a dialogue, a conversation, you have to know the difference that I have my truth and you have your truth, and I want to understand each other's truth. How do you know the truth of a people? Now, individual, it is very easy, but how do you know the truth of a people, a culture? How do I understand what is India's truth? How do I understand what is China's truth? How do I understand what is America's truth? How do I understand what is Europe's truth? How do I understand the truth of a people? In that case, we look at the stories, symbols, and rituals of that culture. So, Katha, Pratima, and Kriya, rituals. That is how you figure out the culture of a people. If I want to understand the culture of Bengal and say, how is the culture of Bengal different from the culture of Maharashtra? How is the culture of Maharashtra different from the culture of Tamil Nadu? How is Tamil Nadu culture different from the culture of Kerala? You have to look at the food that people eat, the clothes that people wear, the stories that they tell. And when you listen to the stories, and that is the area where I focus the most, the stories, you suddenly realize that everybody looks at the world differently. And that's what mythology is. Unfortunately, today we confuse myth and fiction. So many people tell me, Devdutt, why do you use the word mythology? Isko history क्यों नहीं बोलते हो? So I have to explain to people, there's a difference between science and science fiction. So if you're a science fiction writer, doesn't mean you're good in science. There is a difference between history and historical fiction. So you have a history writer who writes on history, and then you have someone who writes a historical fiction based on characters in history. And then you have mythology, and then you have mythological fiction. So what I'm going to do now is use examples from the Ramayana and show the difference between how mythology, mythological fiction transforms. So let's look at Ramayana. When somebody tells me, Devdutt, I want to study the Ramayana, and nowadays Ramayana is a very politically sensitive topic, right? Especially in Bengal. So first we'll say, what is the original Ramayana? Everybody wants to know the original Ramayana. So I tell them, please go to Baroda. In Baroda, there is an Oriental Institute in the Baroda University, which has collected all the oldest manuscripts of Ramayana that are ever available in the 19th century. So in the 19th century, scholars went across India and collected the oldest Ramayana available. And they found it written in Sanskrit, but in different scripts. So there was a Malayalam script, there was a Devanagari script, there was Bengali script, many scripts, but the language was Sanskrit. But it was not the Sanskrit of the Vedas. Vedic Sanskrit is very different from the Sanskrit of Ramayana. Ramayana Sanskrit is classical Sanskrit. So Vedic Sanskrit, the grammar rules are before Panini. Ramayana, when you read the Ramayana, you realize the Sanskrit is after Panini. So now I have got a manuscript with me, and in this manuscript, I find interesting words. I find Shaka, Pallava, Yavana. I find these words in that. And Shaka, Pallava, Yavana came to India about 2,300 years ago. So now I have got two clues. I've got one clue कि जो भाषा है, the language is less than 2,500 years old. And the content tells me things. There is even reference to China, Chinna Desha. And China for the first time connected with India only 2,200 years ago. So you realize these manuscripts were written approximately 2,200 years ago. But it is only written 2,000. How old is the story? Was it told orally before this? Probably. Because even Ramayana, how is it presented? We will tell कि Ramayana was presented to Ram himself by Love and Kush. So Ramayana was orally transmitted. The first person to tell the Ramayana was Love and Kush. The first person to hear the Ramayana was Ram. But the written book is about 2200 years ago. So how old is the oral tradition? I don't know. I can make a guess. I can make some guess. And that is what people work on. But I know the manuscript, the only manuscript I have is 2200 years old. That's it. But when I talk to a man, ordinary person on the road, I said, Ramayana batao mere ko. In Bengal, they will tell me Kritti Basa Ramayana, which is about 500 years old, maybe 600. Dates keep varying depending on which scholar you read, but roughly 500 to 600 years. Valmiki Ramayana, the manuscript is 2200. Who wrote it? I don't know. But then I have a Valmiki Ramayana manuscript from North India, South India, East India, West India. In those days, the words they used is from the Bengal presidency, from the Bombay presidency, from the Madras presidency, we found these manuscripts. And scholars started reading and they realized there is so much variation between them. They are not telling the same story. All of them claim to be the oldest, but barely 40% of the verses are common across all. Only 40%. And you know what? There is no Lakshman Rekha in Valmiki Ramayana. There is no Lakshman Rekha in Valmiki Ramayana. Where does it come from? It comes from Kritti Basa Ramayana of Bengal. So the concept of Lakshman Rekha probably came from one of your ancestors. Before that, there was no Lakshman Rekha. Ravan just comes and picks Sita and takes her away. There is no Lakshman Rekha. So now, when somebody tells me, Devdutt, fact batao, what fact do I tell him? What is fact? What is fiction? Because I am telling you the oldest manuscript of Ramayana does not have Lakshman Rekha. The manuscript that I have. Loka Katha. When I read Kritti Basa Ramayana, I am reading something called Lakshman Rekha. Valmiki Ramayana does not have Love and Kush fighting Ram. Have you heard the story of Love and Kush take Ram's horse and then he fights Ram? This story is not found in Valmiki Ramayana. Where is it found? It is found in a Jain Ramayana by Vimalasuri, written 1700 years ago in Prakrit. Suddenly, in Valmiki Ramayana, Ram listens to Love and Kush singing the song, and it's a very interesting story where Ram looks at Love and Kush and says, very nice song you sang. Whose story are you telling? And Love and Kush says, we are telling your story. See, that's a very good story. It cannot be my story. So Ram does not recognize himself in the Ramayana. So, but then I keep hearing people saying, Devdutt, but वो तो रामायण तो इतिहास है ना, इतिहास है, तो history होगा. And then I have to tell, संस्कृत में इतिहास शब्द का अर्थ बहुत अलग होता है, हिंदी में इतिहास शब्द का अर्थ बहुत अलग होता है. Now, if you have a history student over here or do a Google search, history as a subject is less than 200 years old. If you and I lived 300 years ago, there was no history. Whatever you told about your past was history. Sab legends. Whatever you say is history. One of the oldest history textbooks in India is written somewhere in Bengal. I don't remember the book, but it's a very famous book. And in that book, there is no reference to Ashoka, because nobody had discovered Ashoka at that time. There's no reference to Harappa. To give you an example, when Swami Vivekananda wrote his famous books, Swami Vivekananda did not know Harappa existed. Why? Because Harappa was discovered in 1920, long after Swami Vivekananda was gone. So suddenly history makes things very confusing. But what does itihas in Sanskrit mean? So I'll focus more on mythology. I get carried away by history. Itihas in Sanskrit means only one thing. जो लेखक है, लेखक can't be said is oral tradition, मौखिक परंपरा. जो स्टोरी टेलर है वो स्टोरी के अंदर पार्टिसिपेट करता है. That is the meaning of itihas. I was present in the story, so when I am telling you the story, I am telling you itihas. ऐसा ही हुआ था. In Ramayana, Valmiki is a patra. He is participating in Ramayana. Sita lives with him in his ashram. So he says, मैंने राम को देखा है, मैंने सीता को देखा है, लवर कुश मेरे घर में बड़े थे, तो मैं जब कहानी बोल रहा हूं, इतिहास, ये सच है. व्यास writes the Mahabharata या composes the Mahabharata. He says, महाभारत इतिहास है. क्यों? क्योंकि I saw the Pandavas, I saw the Kauravas, I saw Pandu, I saw Dhritarashtra. मैंने देखा, मैं पार्टिसिपेट किया है वॉर में. I was there, I was present. I went to अंबिका, I went to अंबालिका. नियोग से मेरे बच्चे जन्म हुए हैं. So I was present. इतिहास. So itihas doesn't mean history, it means reporting. I reported. But Puran stories are, I did not witness. Markandeya will say, I have heard this from someone else. मैंने ये सुना इंद्र के बारे में, अग्नि के बारे में. पुराणा है, मैंने देखा नहीं है. I have not witnessed it. I have heard it. Valmiki is telling, रामायण मैंने देखा है, इतिहास. व्यास says, महाभारत मैंने देखा है, इतिहास. So the meaning is very different. How do I explain it to politicians? Because they are geniuses. I have learnt my lesson that don't tell them anything, just agree with them. If you see me agreeing with you, it means I think you are stupid. Because I can't have a samavad and I don't want to do vivad. Vivad se kuch nahi hota hai. It's arm wrestling. And it's good for TV shows and TRP ratings, waste of time. If you want knowledge, you have to listen to scholars. उपनिषद करना है. बैठो, पेड़ के नीचे बैठो और बात करो, सुनो. Listen to what they have to say. श्रुति करो, श्रुति, वेद, listen. दर्शन, look, सुनो, समझो. Try to understand how they are communicating ideas. When I have to write the Ramayana, which Ramayana should I read? Should I read Valmiki Ramayana? Should I read the Jain Ramayans? Should I read Dashratha Jataka? There is Jataka stories where some stories are similar to Ramayana but not the same, very different. But there is some similarities. I'll give you an example of a similarity of Dashratha Jataka. The story of Dashratha Jataka is, Dashratha को पता चलता है कि उसकी दूसरी पत्नी उसके ज्येष्ठ पुत्र को मारना चाहती है. The second queen wants to kill the eldest son. The eldest son's name is Rama Pandit. So he goes to Rama Pandit and says, my second wife wants to kill you. I don't want you to die. I have spoken to the astrologers. Astrologer tells me I will die after 12 years. You go to the forest and live in the forest for 12 years. And only then come back and become king. Ram says, ठीक है, मैं वचन देता हूँ 12 साल बाद मैं वापस आऊँगा. He goes with Sita, he goes with Lakshman to the forest. But astrologer, as usual, got it wrong. 9 years later, Dashrath dies. The mother is excited and says, देखो राम जंगल में है, राजा मर गया है, गद्दी ले ले. And Bharat Pandit says, no. I will go to Ram and tell him to come back. So he goes to the forest and tells Ram, come back. And Ram says, मैंने वचन दिया था 12 साल बाद आऊंगा, मैं 12 साल के पहले नहीं आऊंगा. 3 साल क्या करेंगे? Says, you rule as, he says, I will only rule as a regent. आपका पादुका दीजिए, मैं उसको रखूंगा और वहां पे 3 साल रुकूंगा, 3 साल बाद आप आइए, आप राजा बनिए. दिस इज रामायण दशरथ जाटक. यहां पे कैरेक्टर बोलते हैं कि दिस मैन हैज इंटेग्रिटी, देयरफॉर राम इज बोधिसत्व. दशरथ जाटक, देयर इज नो रावण. दिस इज दशरथ जाटक. बट दिस राम हैज इंटेग्रिटी, पुरुषोत्तम, जबान दिया है, जबान को रखा है. So you see a trace कि हाँ कुछ तो है similar like Ramayana, but not Ramayana. Then you read Jain Ramayana. Jain Ramayana is very interesting. Ram is called Baladeva. Lakshman is called Vasudeva. Ravan is called Prati Vasudeva. Who kills Ravan? Not Ram. It's a Jain manuscript. Jainism believes in ahimsa. Ram says, I will not kill. Who kills? Lakshman kills Ravan. I once wrote this in a tweet. I got 10 threats. Then I knew I was right. Because it's a Jain. Vimalasuri has written it. I have not written it. I am only communicating with you, but तुमको श्रुति नहीं करने का है. My daddy strongest. I agree completely. But you know, Saraswati is like Sarasa, na? She will just run away because she is not interested in indulging foolish people. If you are intelligent, you come, I will give you water. So suddenly you see a Jain Ramayana which is very different, a Buddhist sort of Ramayana which is very different. Then you read Sanskrit Natakas. Sanskrit Natak hota hai. And then you read Bhasha's Pratima Nataka. And I don't know if you've seen a serial called Bharat Ek Khoj, by a very famous serial which was there long ago in ancient times before there was internet. On television this show used to come, and there he has shown Bhasha's Pratima Nataka episode. And it is on a stage, it is a natak, so it's a stage. And it's all monologues. Dialogues are, there is monologue, big dialogues. And then Ravan comes and says to Ram, Ram is sitting in the forest. And Ravan comes and says, I am a great Vedic scholar. I know, I have all the knowledge of Shraddh. And Ram says, oh, you know Shraddh? My father has died, I want to do Shraddh. Tell me how to do Shraddh for my father. And then he gives this long lecture on Shraddh, on what to give. And all the things he says are not vegetarian. He tells you can give a rhinoceros, a deer, a porcupine. And I'm reading this and I'm like, I'm never going to publish this in public. Because as far North Indians is concerned, Sita did not want the golden deers. She wanted it as a pet. Because Ram was vegetarian. So when you meet vegetarians, I personally get very scared. I never tell them anything about Bhasha's poetry, because especially when you read the Dharma Shastra is full of Shraddh rituals. I don't know if you are familiar with the Shraddh ritual. Nowadays we give Pindadan, no, with rice is mashed and then you take Pinda. In traditionally it would have been smashed meat, Mamsa. And there he says, the best thing to give your father is the meat of black buck, the same thing that Salman Khan killed. And then he says, look, there is the black buck. Catch it now, catch it now. And Ram goes in search of the black buck to kill it, to give Shraddha Pindadan to his father. And while he is gone, Sita is abducted. There is no golden deer. When did Bhasha live? 1700 years ago. Because Kalidas refers to Bhasha. So it is before Kalidas. In all these stories, Vimala Suri, Dashrath Jataka, Valmiki Ramayana, in the Bhasha Natakas, even the Bhavabhuti Nataka, Mahavira Charitra, Uttara Charitra, you will find Ram as a hero, as a very powerful man of integrity and augustness. Acha Raja. The word is Tapasvi Raja. But not Dev, not Bhagavan. The word Bhagavan doesn't come at all. The word Bhagavan starts appearing in the Puranas. In the Purans, when you start reading the Purans, Ram starts becoming avatar. But it gets complicated depending on which Puran you read. In one Puran, they will say, Ram, Lakshman, Bharat and Shatrughna are parts of Vishnu. In another, they will say, Ram is Vishnu, Lakshman is Sheshanag, Bharat is his Shankh, and Shatrughna is the Chakra. Now, which is true, which is fact. And by the time you come to the Loka Ramayana, Kamba Ramayana, Dondi Ramayana in Odisha, Krittibasa Ramayana, Asamiya Ramayana, Telugu Ramayana, Kannada Ramayana, you start seeing a different Ram appearing. This Ram is God on earth. Bhakti Parampara has started. Because these epics started being written when the Delhi Sultanate and the Mughals were ruling India. And everybody was talking about the idea of God. This idea of God was not very important in ancient India. It becomes very important in the Delhi Sultanate, in the Mughal period, because suddenly the king is talking about God and his messenger on earth, Allah and Paigambar. These ideas are new. And people say, no, hamara bhi Bhagwan hai, hamara bhi Paigambar hai, wo avatar hai. And suddenly avatar becomes a very big idea in India. And we start talking about Bhagwan Ram, Bhagwan, Krishna, Purushottama, on earth. God is on earth. And now a new Ramayana emerges. Very different from the old Ramayans. Now, which Ramayana is correct? How do I know which Ramayana is correct? Should I take the Tulsidasa Avadhi Ramayana? Should I take Bengali Ramayana? Should I take Sanskrit Ramayana? Whose Ramayana should I take? Then somebody tells me, Devdutt, Valmiki Ramayana is the most accurate. And then I break his heart by saying, when you read Valmiki Ramayana, there is no reference to India's geography south of the Narmada. The entire Valmiki Ramayana, when you read carefully, talks about a geography north of Narmada. And it refers to Ravan, and I'll give you something. This is when I started learning a little bit more botany. Because they say, Lanka mein saal ke ped ugte hain. Saal ka ped is only found in Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Odisha, parts of Bengal. It is not found in South India. South India you get teak wood. So Lanka seems to be north of Narmada. I can't say this in public. I can say this in Calcutta only. Because Lanka has to be in Sri Lanka. But of course, not a single Sri Lankan manuscript refers to Ravan. Not one. But Indians know more than Sri Lankans, no? There is no reference to Ravan anywhere. But tourist guides said that, Bhaiya, Indian tourists are coming, tell them Ravan lived here, Ravan lived there, he had an airport over here, he had his fuel refueling happened over here. And tourists will run and just keep a Golgappa stand next to it. You will make money. So now Sri Lanka is full of fantastic places where Ravan lived, where Mandodari swam, where Surpanakha did her beauty parlor, where Vibhishan was kicked. So different parts of Sri Lanka have different information and accurate information, accurately proven by scientists who have absolutely no degree from a reputed university, who don't believe in peer reviews. Because nowadays, knowledge has nothing to do with peer review. What peer review? My boss will sign it, stamp it, and I'll get the award. So then you can't argue, right? How do you explain to people that Rameshwaram, when they tell me, I said, Vishwas wala sach and Vigyan wala sach alag hota hai. I respect your faith, but don't disrespect Vigyan. When you go to Odisha and you go to Jagannath temple, they will say, somebody told, I remember once telling that ye Krishna ka mandir hai, because ISKCON people keep going around telling that it is Krishna temple. But in Odisha, if you say that, you will get into trouble. Because the Pandas will say, Jagannath Jagannath hai, avatari hai. उनका अवतार एक अवतार कृष्ण है, एक अवतार राम है. On Ram Janma, Jagannath takes the form of Kaushalya and Ram. On Krishna Janma, Jagannath takes the form of Yashoda and Krishna. How do we explain this to people who seem to be experts in Ramayana? Very difficult to explain. Where is the oldest images of Ramayana? So the carvings of Ramayana, I keep asking people, सबसे पुराना carving कहाँ मिलता है? And you realize the oldest carvings of Ramayana are roughly around 1400 years old. That is in the 7th century. You find them in Madhya Pradesh, Nachna, Nachna. Find that. There's a small temple where you first time find images of Ramayana. But really the images of Ramayana are popular in Karnataka. It's interesting, during elections they never mentioned this. That the oldest images of Ram's full Ramayana, the whole Ramayana, the oldest visual representation, 8th century, is found in Badami, Aihole, in Karnataka. It is found in the Ellora caves. If you go to Ellora and you see the Kailasanatha temple, you'll find the entire Ramayana there. And interestingly, 8th century, you will find the entire Ramayana in Indonesia. In the Prambanan temple, the entire Ramayana in the 8th century. And if you go to Cambodia, you will find the entire Ramayana in the 12th century. The entire Ramayana is carved over there. So which Ramayana is the right Ramayana? You go to Thailand and they'll say, where is Ram? Say, Ram lived in Thailand. Ayodhya is Ayutthaya, Bangkok. Imagine saying this to people. Come to the real Ayodhya, very close to Bangkok. But as per Thai people, wo unka sach hai. It is their truth. I have to respect their truth. I'm not saying it is right or wrong. It is your truth. And that is myth. In my truth, in Jagannath Puri, Ram is different. In Nashik, Ram is different. People ask, where was Hanuman born? According to some people, he was born in Andhra Pradesh. According to some people, he was born in Karnataka, Maharashtra, Goa, Thailand, which means he can't get an Aadhaar card. And then you realize which is the truth. Sach kya hai? Batao. Because everywhere there is a temple. Yahan Hanuman ji ka janma hua tha. And people make a living out of it. I would rather have 10 birthplaces of Hanuman. Because 10 people can make money out of it. If you have only one birthplace, only one person can make money out of it. And we know who that is. I believe that we should appreciate things from the plural point of view. So when you study mythology and you're reading mythology, don't look for one story. Look for multiple stories. See how and why was this story written, when was it written, where was it written, by whom was it written, for which reason did he write. In the 20th century, Ramayana is written very differently from the way Ramayana is written in the 19th century. When Michael Madhusudan Dutt writes Meghnad Vadh, you start reading it and you start smiling because you realize he's reading a lot of Greek mythology. Because Meghnad Vadh is unusually similar to the Iliad, where Meghnad is playing the role of Hector and Ravan is playing the role of Priam. 19th century, they were reading all these books, they were in the middle of the British Empire. 17th century Ramayana is different, 16th century Ramayana is different. Ramayana keeps changing over time. And I think we should all enjoy whatever comes our way in our different languages, different forms, and celebrate it, rather than trying to seek one Ramayana. Because in India, we always believe in the principle of what is the Jains called Anekantavad. There are many truths. Your truth, my truth, there are 100 people in this room, 100 truths. Let's discover each other's truth and expand our truth. Because when we expand our truth, we become truly wise. Thank you. So if you want to ask a few questions, I don't know if the time permits. Is there time? So maybe a few questions and somebody can moderate. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I can't hear you.
Thanks. Thanks, it was really interesting. Just one thing, you said that as far as you are concerned, the Ramayana was happened before Narmada, right?
Not me, Valmiki
No,
Ramayana.
Valmiki Ramayana. Fair enough. So where does the story of Sri Lanka and the seas come in? Where does that part happen? Because that's also very
See, one thing is you must understand that Ramayana story spread across India as Brahmanism spread. Right? So the Chalukyas, who ruled in the 7th century, brought Ramayana in a very big way to Karnataka. The Cholas, this film you're seeing, PS1, PS2, because nobody can pronounce Ponniyin Selvan and all that, but PS1, PS2 is about the Cholas. They brought the Ramayana in a very big way to Tamil Nadu. Before that, there were Alvar poets. So Ramayana travels slowly. The Chalukyas hated the Cholas and called them Rakshasas. So say Lanka is in Tamil Nadu. The Cholas hated the Sri Lankans because they were fighting a war, and they said that is Sri Lanka, that is Rakshasa Bhumi. And then Kamban writes the story. So now what happens? Your local ecosystem becomes, Rameshwaram becomes important, like that. So stories change. But as far as if I read only the old Sanskrit manuscript, when they are referring to the word Samudra, it means a big water body. And the scene, why? In Panchatantra, have you heard the story of the monkey and the crocodile? Yeah, uska jambu ka heart. So traditional India, the way we say cat and mouse always fight, traditionally in India, monkey and crocodiles were greatest enemies. In Valmiki Ramayana, they say, in Samudra is full of makara. And the Vanar doesn't want to go near the makara, so build a bridge. Because if you build a boat, the crocodiles will push the boat and eat because they love to eat Vanar. And if you read the monsters that Hanuman encounters while crossing Samudra, it is all like crocodile-like. Sirisa, Sumika. So the word Lanka, by the way, means island. It doesn't mean a place. Any river island is called Lanka. So Sal Tree, Lanka, there are many examples. If you Google it, you will get articles where all scholars know it. So from a literary point of view, everybody knows that Valmiki Ramayana refers to a geography which is primarily north of the Narmada. But from a faith point of view, मेरा विश्वास है, राम यहाँ आए थे, बॉम्बे में भी आए थे, वहाँ बाण गंगा है. If you go to Bombay, there is a place called Baan Ganga, जहाँ राम ने बाण लगा के पानी, तो बॉम्बे में भी आए हैं. Everywhere you build a city, Ram appears. You will find Ram Kund, Sita Kund across India. Many Buddhist caves in Maharashtra are called Pandav Leni, which means caves of Pandavas, because they had never heard of Buddha. So, so scholars will have a different view, but from a Vishwas point of view, yes, Rameshwaram is the spot from where Ram Setu is the bridge. Sri Lanka is, that is Vishwas. But from a literary point of view, I will be like, maybe not.
Fair enough.
Sir, I have a question.
Sure.
This is on not on Ramayana. This is on Jaya,
Sure.
your Mahabharata.
Yeah.
So I have been through this book, and I must say that most of us have read multiple Mahabharata, starting from Upendra Kishore Rai Chaudhary in Bangla in our childhood, and followed by many. So I have not seen so structured and so well written Mahabharata. So far.
Thank you so much.
But my question is, when you structured this, your writing, you have introduced a lot of stories. As you were talking about Ramayana, you have found a lot of versions of Mahabharata, and you picked up those stories and inculcated there. My question is, there must be, so far I could understand by reading, you might have filtered a lot.
Yes.
So what is the process of filtration? Because every story might have, you
Yeah,
might
I
have thought
understand.
that it
Very
is
good
right.
question.
So how you did that?
So, what I wanted to, my aim in Jaya is, because I had read Rajgopalachari's, and I found, when I read it, I thought that was the Mahabharata. And then when I started reading academic books, I realized there was a big gap between what I was reading and what is there in the academic books, and I felt very cheated. And I wanted to show people the scale of Mahabharata, the scale. And I realized it dealt a lot with legitimacy. Whole Ramayana is about property, Jameen Jaidad. This property should go to my son. What is the definition of a son? Is it the child born from your body? Is it a child born of your wife from another man? Is it a child you have adopted? So you find these different complex definitions. So when you read my Jaya, what I've done is I've designed it in a way that you ask this fundamental question: how is property divided? On what basis you claim ye mera jameen hai? This is the central thesis of the Mahabharata. So when you read a Bhagavad Gita, I'll give you an example for this audience. I want to show, when people, I've written the book My Gita, but you will see there's a connection between My Gita and Jaya for this one reason. You don't have to read the whole Gita. You just have to read the first paragraph of the Gita, which is told by Dhritarashtra. And Dhritarashtra is looking at Sanjay and telling Sanjay, and I'm giving you the translation, but the translation is this is where translations are very important. You don't need to know the original Sanskrit, but the translation, if it's fairly accurate, it's great. He says, tell me what is happening in Kurukshetra between my sons, mere bacche, and Pandu's sons. Now this is an innocent sentence, no? My sons and Pandu's sons. But you ask yourself, in India, we would not say that, no? We would say, because you know the story, and because you have read Jaya, and you know the relationship between Dhritarashtra, Pandu, Pandav, Kaurav, he should have said, my sons and my nephews. My son and my brother's sons. He does not use any words which mean relative. He says Pandu. If you have not read the story, you think Pandu is a stranger. And in that one paragraph, you realize the bottom line of the Ramayana is, Mahabharata is, on what basis you decide this is family and this is not family. And property is divided within family. If you're not family, I don't have to give you property. That is the basis of the Mahabharata. That's all. That is why Karna is an important character. Is he brother or not brother? When you didn't have information, you killed him. When you have information, now he's my brother. So Krishna is saying, on what basis you decide ye apna hai ya paraya hai? That is the one line explanation of Mahabharata. So I write that explanation, and then I design my structure, and on the basis of that I include and exclude. So that's how you do this work. You have to know the essence, and then I'm writing for a modern audience. I have only 500 pages. Cost of the book has to be only 399 rupees. Please buy. All that has to be considered from 1 lakh verses, and all the versions I have to filter, but my soul remains this. On what basis do you decide kiska jameen? So that's how you work. Yeah, so that's how it.
Good evening, sir. That was a very great session from you. I'm also interested in mythology. I read a lot of mythological stories and all. So my question is that Ramayana was written.
We lost him.
Hello.
Yes.
Sorry. So Ramayana was written at different time periods. So is it that there were some social issues that was being like that was to be handled? So that's why the reformations were made in the epics, so that like in the Ramayana that was written 2200 years ago, or the Ramayana that was written 700 years ago. So like we find in Ramayana some Agni Pariksha was not there in some of the Ramayanas, and in some Love Kush was not even being mentioned in some Ramayanas. So is it because of some social reforms that had to be made so that the things were to be conveyed to common people?
So it's complex. See, one of the reasons, whenever in India you became a king, the first thing you did is you commissioned the writing of the Ramayana. अगर तुम राजा बनते हो, तो राजा बनने के लिए, how do you tell the world कि मैं राजा हूँ? There are many things you'll do. You'll do a yagya. In the old days, they would do a yagya. Or you'll build a building. So the sultans would build masjids, and they would show that I am the king. You are not, So they would, everyone, so in India, to be a king, you had to get the Ramayana either carved on a wall or composed through your court poet. Now, when he's writing it, he's also taking into consideration the local issues. Exactly. So that is one type of Ramayana. Another type of Ramayana came in Bhakti period, where Ramayana was used as a tool to communicate Bhakti, and I don't need a temple. I'm not allowed to enter the temple, Ram, but I can meet you. So Shabari ke Bear story, where he eats jhuta, is only 300 years old, exactly. Which can be traced to the Odia Mahabharat, which is 700 years old. Uske pehle you don't find the story. So you find the social issues also coming slowly. Today in the 21st century, you have got so many young writers writing the Ramayana. They are projecting their own philosophy into it. They have become lawyers. So they'll write books like, I think Ravan was right, I think Surpanakha was right, so they write like lawyers and judges. Exactly. So that's a 21st century phenomena, where you judge the Ramayana. But before the 18th century, nobody judged the Ramayana. You celebrated the Ramayana and you added a little bit. So Jains brought ahimsa into it. Bodhisattva brought compassion into it. Somebody else brought something else into it. And therefore, through Ramayana, you understand India's literary, intellectual, emotional history.
So another question is that talking about Mahabharata. So just single question. So talking about.
Let others ask.
Okay, fine.
Maybe a lady, because only gentlemen are asking. So, yeah. Last question. Yeah.
Hello.
So this will be the last question.
Yeah, sure. So, sir, as we know that history gets manipulated according to the perspective, and as well as mythology. So in that case, how is Jaya any different?
You have to look at the writer.
Yeah. So some perspective matters everywhere, right?
Yeah, it does. But you see, Ravan's perspective cannot be equal to Hanuman's perspective.
Agreed.
So you have to first check who is writing. Is Ravan writing or Hanuman writing?
So who is going to judge that?
You. If you can't differentiate between Hanuman and Ravan, you are in serious trouble, my lady.
But in that case,
देखो शादी.com में पता नहीं कितने रावण आ जाएंगे वहाँ पे.
लेकिन सर शादी.com में ये भी तो नहीं पता चलता है कि हनुमान है कि रावण सामने से है.
हनुमान तो शादी नहीं करेगा.
करता है ना.
हाँ, तो आपको करना पड़ेगा. खाना दे दो, हरण भी हो जाएगा.
जी.
That is a responsibility you have to take.
Of course. Thank you, sir.